The National Treasury has announced that it would inject 47 billion rand into Transnet as a support package to alleviate its debt. The troubled state-owned entity manages the port of Durban, which is currently suffering from massive container congestion. The South African Association of Freight Forwarders has applauded the government's guarantee, saying it's a test of critical importance for Transnet and the country. Treasury says the aid will take the form of a guarantee mechanism to help Transnet meet impending debt repayments. Now, Transnet has long struggled with corruption scandals, theft, maintenance, problems, and it's got a 135 billion rand debt. The company posted an annual loss of 5.7 billion rand in its last financial year, ending in March. To discuss this matter further, we are joined virtually by the director of the South African Association of Freight Forwarders, Mike Walwyn, who is standing by to talk to us. Mike, thank you. Thanks very much for joining us here on the programme.
Good morning and thank you.
So this obviously came, a lot of people talking about the fact that this was sort of a surprise announcement. It wasn't necessarily expected in any way. In fact, when we saw the midterm budget, this was nowhere near the minister's radar. But then on Friday, the announcement was made. Do you believe that this is the step in the right direction, though?
Yes, any step in that sort of direction is right. And I think it happened because government had realized just how critically urgent this problem is and that it must be fixed immediately. So that's good. You just made the point, this is a guarantee, not cash. So Transnet itself has to use that guarantee to go out and raise more cash, but I'm sure they'll do that. I hope they do it very quickly. Of the 47 billion, you may recall also that about 22 of it is to go to immediate requirements, which I would think is servicing existing debt and a few other things as well. And that leaves a balance of about 25, which I hope is going to be put straight in to the acquisition of the equipment that Transnet so desperately needs. Because without that, the performance of our ports will not improve. It may even go further backwards, and that really is too much to contemplate.
Yeah. You know, one looks at Transnet debt and you have this image of one single drop in a massive ocean. And I mean, we're talking 47 billion rand. And I mean, that's not a small amount that they can borrow against. But the bottom line is their debt is massive. I mean, how do you actually think that the entity should use this guarantee awarded by the government and perhaps not get themselves into even more trouble? Because this could lead into more trouble.
It could, but if it's done properly, I think there's every chance. Now, when I say properly, we believe and have said for a long time now to Transnet and government that what we think is that this organization would be better served by being in what we call public-private partnership. And I stress that I'm not talking about privatization, I'm talking about a partnership where the state owns the property and the terminal operator, who may be the partner, has operational independence. There are very good models for this right over the border in Mozambique. We see it happening up in Angola and Namibia. There's no reason why it can't happen here. And that way you would be almost making sure that you don't fall back into this debt morass, which is where they are now, because you will by then have people operating the ports and operating them efficiently and professionally. They would be investing, they would be putting in some of the infrastructure that we need, and so on and so on. And by the way, when I talk about ports, I'm including railways as well, which is a separate organization, TFR, Transnet Freight Rail, but that also is critically in need of support. And you only have to look at the queues of trucks on the N2 at Richards Bay and on the N4 on the way to Maputo to understand that.
Yeah. You know, when we sort of look at what Treasury have actually said, you know, they put in these clauses saying that they have to meet strict guarantee conditions for the funds. Perhaps you can let us in, as much as we can, in layman's terms, understand what are these strict conditions and perhaps your view on this?
I don't know all the details, but I do know that one of them is that there would have to be serious talking to private sector partners. And of course, we applaud that. We ourselves, as representatives of some private sector organizations, have always said that we are ready to collaborate and cooperate with Transnet in depth and as far as possible to get a workable solution. So we would be out there making sure that the sort of terminal operating world, if you like, train operating world is aware of this, and they are ready to come and look at whatever expressions of interest are put out by Transnet.
Yeah.
And then the rest is obviously financial reporting, must be up to date and correct. We are looking at a potential now moving Transnet's debt load onto something like 200 million or close to it, and we're starting to get into ESCOM territory there. And as an organization, we believe that in fact this thing is more long-term, in the long term, can be more damaging even than ESCOM. So it's that important.
Let's look at leadership at Transnet at the moment. I mean, we'll go back. We've got 130 billion rand debt, okay, at Transnet. No permanent CEO. This was when we saw Portia Derby leaving that particular portfolio a few months ago alongside the CFO, Nkululeko Dlamini. Caesar Mzimela, also the head of the company's biggest unit, the Transnet Freight, also leaving. There is an acting CEO right now, that of course Michelle Phillips. We will see how her performance is. But I mean, this is the kind of leadership that they're dealing with in and amongst the debt problem that's happening there. My question to you is, do you think Transnet have the right people to ensure that these funds are used effectively?
Yeah, look, it's a mixed question in one sense. Michelle Phillips, we do know, we have admiration and respect for her, and we think she has the experience and the capability. The trouble now is that she's being put into a position where it's got to a point where in its current structure, I don't think it's fixable, no matter how good you are. And that's why the critical importance of getting some outsiders involved. As far as the rest is concerned, the previous management, yes, it's finished. We don't have to talk too much about it. But what we can say is that, sorry, I just have something in my throat there. Yeah, what we can say is that previous management was the management that allowed or encouraged almost 700 highly skilled and experienced people to take voluntary severance packages. Now, I think you would agree that would not have done the organization much good at all. And that's what we're suffering from, apart from the shortage of machinery and equipment and maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, if we again let's Mike just look at sort of trying to sort out some of the issues that Transnet have got, and I mean, let's begin with trains, because the lack of actual trains is a big problem. I mean, we remember going back to, you know, the whole issue around the trains that they do have that are not working because they can't actually get parts to service these trains. It was a very controversial deal that we all know about, and the reality is that these trains can't be fixed, they can't be used, and it's the whole issue of maintenance, it's the corruption, it's all of these things that are a big problem. What do we do here? You know, we can get as much money as possible, but how do we ensure that this actually happens?
Once again, you get a skilled railway operator who is prepared to invest in the long term. Now, one thing that happened 2 years or 3 years ago, I think, is that Transnet put out an inquiry, expressions of interest, please, on operating a section of the railway line, not a particularly important one. And what they said was that the operator could come in and operate it, and he would have a 2-year contract, whereafter he would have to hand everything back to Transnet.
Okay.
Now, unsurprisingly, not too many people were excited by that. So any expression that goes up must be for a long-term period, because that's the only way the partner will invest in this.
All right. Okay, Mike, thanks for talking to us. Mike Walwyn is the director of the South African Association of Freight Forwarders.